Boston just scooped up Chris Boucher, a one-year, low-cost bet that looks minor until you see the timing and the fit. Days after moving Georges Niang to Utah to ease a brutal tax crunch, Boston pounced on a 6'9" chaos big who blocks shots, runs the floor, and quietly hit 36% from three last season. That's the exact profile you want while Jayson Tatum rehabs his Achilles and the roster leans younger, longer, and cheaper. Here's the kicker. At roughly 1 year, $3.3 million, Boucher gives Joe Mazzulla plug-and-play versatility without handcuffing the books. If his energy translates, this quiet signing could define how Boston survives the Tatum gap year and maybe steal a few games they weren't supposed to. But that's only part of it. Boston didn't just grab a depth big. They timed a clean, surgical move that only works because of everything that happened this week. First, the team made it official. The Celtics have signed Chris Boucher. No numbers in the press release, but multiple outlets pin it at 1 year, $3.3 million. Classic low-risk flyer for a 6'9" rim runner who blocks shots, stretches the floor, and plays with chaos energy. That headline hit today, and the timing is the whole story. Boston set the table days earlier by moving Georges Niang to the Jazz and bringing back rookie wing RJ Lewis Jr. That deal wasn't about stylistics. It was about math. Shedding Niang's salary carved out room for Boucher while staying under the second apron, which is the trapdoor that buried so many contenders last year. Stevens avoided it, then pounced on a plug-and-play forward the moment the paperwork cleared. Now zoom out. This comes in a summer where Kristaps Porzingis went to Atlanta and Drew Holiday flipped to Portland for Anthony Simons, and most importantly, Jayson Tatum is rehabbing a ruptured Achilles with no rush to return. You can see the blueprint. Cheaper, longer, harder-running lineups that keep the lights on and the flexibility intact while the franchise player heals. It's not a splash, it's a stabilizer. Why Boucher specifically? Because the numbers travel. Last season in Toronto, he gave 10.0 points in 17 minutes a night and quietly hit 36% from three, which fits Mazzulla's pace and space better than a traditional bruiser would. He'll sprint into actions, live as a weak-side shot blocker, and survive next to shooters without clogging the lane. That's the exact archetype you want when your star wing is out and every possession has to be manufactured by committee. Boston didn't win the day with star power, they won the week with sequencing. Clear salary, add a high-motor 4-5 who shoots, and guard your apron space for whatever comes next. If Boucher holds his 36% corner gravity and brings his chase-down instincts to a team that's betting on collective effort, this tiny deal plays loud. And here's the twist, the cap gymnastics aren't even the most interesting part of how this changes the rotation. That comes next. This wasn't random. Boston cleared the runway first. Before the Boucher signing hit the wire, the Celtics shipped Georges Niang to the Jazz for rookie RJ Lewis Jr. and seconds. That move wasn't about fit. It was about math. Offload Niang's salary, then slide in Boucher without tripping the harsh second apron penalties. The league office summary spelled it out. The Niang deal gave Boston the flexibility to remain below the second penalty apron once Boucher was added. The sequencing mattered. Niang out on August 5th to 7 reports, Boucher official on August 10th. By doing it in that order, Boston avoided the ugliest cap pain and got the exact archetype they needed on a one-year deal. The press release confirmed the signing. Reporting around the deal pegged it at roughly $3.3 million. Clean, simple, low risk. Here's the kicker. Insiders say the combo of moves left the Celtics about $7.8 million under the second apron and saved roughly $34 million in luxury tax this season. That's not just bookkeeping, that's optionality. Staying under the second apron keeps you away from the league's nastiest restrictions and preserves flexibility for in-season tweaks if a bargain pops up. In a Tatum rehab year, that breathing room is a weapon. So no, Boucher wasn't a found money signing. He was the payoff to a deliberate sequence. Shed Niang's full number into Utah space, take back a low-cost rookie, then add an energy 4-5 who can run, block, and space at minimum cost. That's how you keep the lights on without mortgaging the next window. And if you're wondering how quickly this translates to the court, wait until you see the ripple effect on the rotation and the defensive coverages they can spam now. That's where the real value shows up. Next, strip away the headlines and look at the bodies, and Boston's front line feels brand new. Kristaps Porzingis has gone to Atlanta, a July deal that forced the Celtics to rethink size, spacing, and rim protection in one shot. Luke Kornet out to San Antonio on a 4-year pact. In their place, Brad Stevens has stacked low-cost, high-motor bigs, Chris Boucher on a 1-year flyer and Luka Garza on a 2-year deal, with Neemias Quata and Exever Tillman Sr. still in the room. It's not star-driven, it's innings eaters, length, and hustle while the franchise resets its identity. The other reality check? Jayson Tatum's Achilles rehab hovers over every rotation choice. With Tatum expected to miss most or all of the season, Boston needs front-court minutes that rebound, run, and don't blow up the cap. That's why the Georges Niang to Utah move mattered. It slid the Celtics under the second apron, then opened the door for Boucher at a clean number. Meanwhile, Jrue Holiday to Anthony Simons shifted usage to a score-first guard, which raises the value of bigs who can sprint into actions and finish without touches being called for them. So what does it look like on opening night? Think Quetta, Garza eating bulk 5 minutes, Tillman toggling 4-5 in switch groups, and Boucher as the pace piece. Weak side shot blocker, rim runner, and corner 3 pressure next to Sam Hauser and Jaylen Brown. If Al Horford returns somewhere else or not at all, the path to 18-24 Boucher minutes are wide open. It's a committee approach, but with a purpose. Keep the defense long, the transition game alive, and the books clean for the next window. And if the Niang trade was the cap lever, the Boucher bet is the on-court hinge, because how his energy translates will decide whether this front line survives the grind or steals wins it shouldn't. Up next, what Boucher actually brings that Boston didn't have before. Think long, springy, and relentless. Chris Boucher is a 6'9" forward with a reported 7'4" wingspan, built to fly in from the weak side, erase drives, and then sprint the floor before defenses resent. He's not a post-up bruiser. He's a chaos engine who turns bad spacing into chase-down blocks and leak-outs, then keeps you honest with real pick-and-pop range. Last season, he quietly put up 10.0 points in 17.2 minutes and shot 36.3% from 3, the exact profile Joe Mazzulla can plug into 5-out or early drag actions without calling his number. Give him lanes, and he'll run into them. Park him in the corner, and he'll punish late help. The value isn't just the jumper, it's the help side timing. Boucher closes from the nail, contests at the rim without needing a double, and can switch in a pinch if Boston toggles into zone or scram coverage to protect matchups. On a roster that just swapped out Jrue Holiday for Anthony Simons and lost the high-end size of Kristaps Porzingis, that mobility matters. Boston needs length that moves, shoots, and doesn't tax the cap while Jayson Tatum works back from Achilles surgery. Boucher checks those boxes, and he's been on winning benches before. Raptors 2019 title plus a Warriors ring, so the moment won't spook him. Here's the kicker. When his role is clean, sprint, space, swat, his impact pops. When it drifts, the flaws creep in. And that's where the real gamble begins, because the downsides are exactly what Boston thinks it can fix next. Here's the honest read. Boucher's game swings on discipline. When he hunts blocks, he'll also bite on pump fakes and tack on cheap fouls, a habit coaches in Toronto called out more than once. The track record backs it up. He has sat near the top tier in PF per 36 among actives over his career, even if last season trended better. You love the activity until it gifts teams free points. Rebounding? He's not a board vacuum. The advanced line says solid, not dominant. Defensive rebounds percentage is 19.6. Total rebounds percentage is 13.9 in 2024-25. That's fine for a stretchy 4, but against bully ball 5s, it can tilt second-chance possessions the wrong way. Boston will need a true center next to him or gang rebound principles when he's at the 5. The shot is real but streaky. Last year's 36.3% from deep fits Mazzulla ball. His career sits around 33.9%. If the pull-up diet creeps beyond catch-and-shoot corners, the efficiency can wobble and the spacing benefit shrinks. Keep him in his lanes. And then there's trust. Under Darko Rajakovic, he ping-ponged in and out of the rotation. DNPs, role changes, then a spark off the bench. That volatility wasn't always performance. Sometimes it was the youth movement. Still, it shows how quickly coaches can lose the thread if his decisions drift. Boston has to script the role tightly. Sprint, space, swat, and sit before the fouls pile up. One more data flag. His defensive BPM was slightly negative last season, despite good energy. A reminder that the chaos cuts both ways. The fix is usage and pairing. Shorter bursts with a glass eater and a switchable wing. If Boston nails that, the risk fades fast. If not, the warts show quickly. And that leads to the bigger shift this move hints at, the identity Boston is embracing while Tatum heals. One injury flipped Boston's entire philosophy. With Jayson Tatum recovering from a ruptured Achilles and no pressure to rush him back, the Celtics can't play the same star-centric, late-clock offense that leaned on his shot-making. The team has signaled as much publicly. His return this season is uncertain, and the priority is a full recovery, not a deadline. That reality forces a year built on depth, tempo, and collective scoring instead of hero ball.
Look at the moves through that lens. Drew Holiday out, Anthony Simons in. That's a pivot toward a primary creator who can carry usage while Tatum heals. Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta, another high-salary piece moved as Boston rebalances size and cost. Georges Niang to Utah for R.J. Lewis Jr., followed by Chris Boucher, officially signed. Long, active legs over expensive specialty shooting. It's not a tank, it's a reset. Get cheaper, get faster, stay flexible, and live to strike when Tatum is truly ready. That identity shows up in the front court template. Instead of a featured post scorer, Boston stacks motor and length. Neemias Queta, Xavier Tillman, Luka Garza, plus Boucher as a roaming weak side eraser who can hit catch-and-shoot threes. Analysts already peg Boucher as a floor spacer at the 4 who covers for the non-shooting 5s and runs the floor in second units. It's defense to offense basketball, fueled by effort and pace, and it fits a year where development minutes matter. Financially, the sequencing kept Boston below the second apron after adding Boucher, preserving in-season flexibility for another bargain or two. In a bridge year, that optionality is a weapon as valuable as any one player. The question now is simple. With this new identity, who actually plays with whom on opening night? And how do the matchups change when Boston goes small, big, or zone heavy? That's where it gets fun next. Here's how it likely opens. Derek White, Anthony Simons, Jaylen Brown, Sam Hauser, Neemias Queta, with Chris Boucher as the first front court changeup. White organizes, Simons soaks up on-ball usage, Brown drives the mismatches, Hauser spaces, and Queta handles the dirty work at the rim. Boucher checks in to turbo the pace and length, turning second units into a track meet. When Boston wants more punch, swap Queta for Luka Garza and let Simons Hauser gravity feed pick and pops. Garza screens and finishes, Boucher flies around as the weak side eraser and corner threat. That's your score fast, survive on activity group. Against jumbo 4s, Giannis-type drivers, big wings, pair Xavier Tillman Sr. with Boucher. Tillman handles the body blows, Boucher hunts blocks from the second line and runs in transition. It's not about post touches, it's about stacking stops and sprinting before the defense sets. Need to switch more or junk it up? Boston can go White, Simons, Brown, Boucher, Tillman, and toggle between switch 5 and zone. Brown and Boucher shrink driving lanes, Tillman communicates the back line and keeps them out of rotation hell. If the opponent hides a non-shooter, park Boucher in that help window and dare them to make 2 passes. The Hauser plus Boucher combo is sneaky. One pins defenders to the arc, the other punishes late help with blocks and leakouts. And with Jayson Tatum likely sidelined most or all of the year, these modular groups are the identity. Mix, match, and buy wins on effort, spacing, and tempo, while staying under the tax tripwires created by the Niang to Jazz move and the Boucher minimum deal. The margins become the game, and Boucher lives in the margins. Next, why that flexibility could turn him into a mid-season asset Boston didn't plan on. Here's why this tiny deal can echo later. Minimum contracts are the league's Swiss Army knives, easy to move, easy to stack, and painless on the books. If Boucher gives Boston real minutes, rim runs, weak side swats, corner threes, his value inflates without costing a cent more. Now he's not just a rotation piece, he's a pressure valve. Need to balance money in a multiplayer swap? He fits. Need a plug-and-play big for a team chasing size and energy at the deadline? He's the prototype. That optionality matters in a year built on flexibility. If the group clicks, you write it and pocket the surplus production. If another move materializes, Boucher becomes clean trade ballast that doesn't handcuff Boston with future guarantees. And if he pops, hitting catch and shoots and sprinting into a 2 or 3 momentum shifting blocks a week, his market turns from flyer to deadline asset teams call about. That's how low-risk flyers turn into second-rounders, swap sweeteners, or the final piece that nudges a bigger deal across the line. There's a softer value too. Boucher soaks innings during the grind, steals a few regular season wins with energy, and keeps your primary scorers fresher for the stretch. That's hidden equity on a one-year bet. And because Boston stayed lean financially,
They're not forced to choose between development minutes and opportunistic upgrades. They can do both. So the question isn't, is Boucher the long-term answer? It's, can Boston turn this small stake into leverage, on the court or on the phone, by mid-season? If the answer is yes, this signing goes from quiet to game-shaping in a hurry. And there's one last piece to tie it all together, the bottom-line takeaway that frames Boston's entire pivot. Strip the logos off, and it's simple. Boston turned a cap squeeze into a live body who runs, shoots, and blocks without touching the tax tripwire. They cleared Niang, slid under the punishing apron, then signed Chris Boucher on a one-year flyer that doesn't handcuff anything later. That's clean roster architecture, sequencing, not splash. On the floor, the math is the appeal. Boucher gives Joe Mazzulla plug-and-play 4-5, who sprints in actions, protects the rim on the second line, and spaces from the corners. In a season where Jayson Tatum's Achilles rehab reshaped a plan, Boston needs energy that travels and minutes that don't cost. This is exactly that. Zoom out and the pattern is obvious. Holiday to Simons to reduce tax, Porzingis to Atlanta to rebalance size and salary, Niang to Utah to open room, then Boucher as the low-risk hinge that ties it all together. If he hits his catch and shoots and stays disciplined on fouls, he's found money. If he pops, he becomes deadline leverage, easy to keep, easier to stack in a bigger swing. Either way, Boston wins the margins. Here's the kicker. Contenders aren't built only by star trades. They're sustained by the little bets that hold the season together while the front office hunts for the next big one. Boucher is one of those bets, quiet, cheap, and perfectly timed. If Boston squeezes controlled impact out of his chaos, this signing won't just fill minutes, it'll buy options. And that might be the only currency that matters between now and the day Tatum steps back on the floor.